So what other reasons could there be?
They're only there for 2 terms, so they've got to make as much money as they can in that 2 terms. They've got to sell weaponry, they've got to do all this sort of business. They've got to start something to keep their economy going. Halliburton, which is Mr Cheney's group of enterprises. So it's it just shows you how corrupt and crooked the American government can be. And here we have the Australian government almost following suit.
So where does that leave us?
Australia went to war against a nation that was not attacking us. The dictator to whom the US itself had given weapons became the excuse to attack a nation weakened by sanctions. That hypocrisy was bad enough. But we now know Australia had its own hypocrisy, with the AWB pouring money into the pockets of the Iraqi government.
We're just as bad as the United States in terms of being prepared to deal and being prepared to overlook whether it is the deaths of a huge number of deaths of civilians, or whether it's Abu Ghraib atrocities, or whether it's our David Hicks at Guantanamo Bay.
Really what the government is saying about David Hicks. He's a terrorist, therefore it doesn't matter if he doesn't get a fair trial. Indeed, the government's almost saying it might be a bad thing if he gets a fair trial because he may be acquitted. And that would mean that the evidence the government thought was there was not there.
What do you mean that just makes them look bad?
Well, it would make them look bad, yes.
It's gone past the guilt or the innocent part. It's now into the human rights issues. And I believe this is what it's all about right now, is the human rights issues. I suppose when you try and look and forecast the future, I think our kids are going in for rough time. The terrorist laws to me are a big worry. This is one way of stopping people from speaking out. This is another way of stopping people from having the old banter in the pub about the politics and the way the country's been run, and he's a bastard and he's a good bloke and all this sort of, that's gone.
We're often as a people horrified by the fact that politicians may lie. I mean, although it may sound bizarre because, I mean, the two words go hand in hand, but still, besides the act of lying, I believe one of the biggest failing is not telling the complete truth, not conveying the picture. So that at least the next time we come round to making a decision on whether to go to war or not, the world will be informed.
Before we can do anything, we have to at least know what we're talking about, which isn't easy when the leaders we rely on never seem to say what they mean or mean what they say.
I think that solving this problem of this parallel war of information that is using terms and words in order to fuel and give credibility and validity, you know, to killing people, I think that is a war that we need to start fighting immediately. During the war on Iraq, we talk about, you know, surgical operations, surgical attacks. I mean, the name may be quite dazzling and quite impressive, but the reality is that there is nothing surgical about killing people. There is nothing surgical about tons of iron and fire falling upon people's heads. There is nothing surgical about that. We talk about collateral. People's lives being collateral. I mean, for God's sake, we have even, through pursuing this line of argument, we have given credence to the argument of Osama bin Laden, who says he is fighting the West, and these people in the Twin Towers were merely collateral. We have given credibility to his argument.
Bells went off in my head. If words are being used to manipulate people, I felt it was important to find out more about how that's done by an expert in how language is constructed.
Oh, Richard.
Anna, how are you doing?
Hi. Come on in, sit down.
One of the first pieces of analysis I did was to look at George Bush's first speech to Congress after 9/11.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
What he does is shore up this really simplistic kind of division between those who've perpetrated the act and, you know, America is the victim of it. You know, there's a phrase he uses towards the end of his speech where he says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, we will meet violence with patient justice. Now, at this stage, there are already plans to bomb Afghanistan and to invade Iraq. That's already been talked about. So he's very careful in describing what they do as violence, whereas the violence that we're about to do is cast in terms of patient justice. The whole speech is yes or no, you're with us or you're against us, so that there's only one choice, and that's the choice to go towards war. And it shows you that language is this wonderfully plastic resource.
We looked up the word terrorist. Yes, a terrorist is someone that destroys civilian property and civilians. Now, what's George doing?
Till now, we're fighting this war against terror. Till now, no one has yet to come up with a definition of what terror is. However, we're all terrified, and it is creating terror. And we're told, unless we carry on, we will lose the war on terror. We have created an enemy that we have yet to define. So we're losing on all fronts. The kind of spin, the kind of lies that are being told in staged performances is just another element of this whole campaign that unfortunately no one is paying attention to.
So how is this being used at home?
Of course, governments love to divide and conquer, and if they can isolate citizens, then it's a lot easier for government to get their way.
The government has played politics with race and religion. It's easy to arouse fears of difference. If you don't know Muslims, if you don't understand Afghanistan, you've never been there, it's easy to draw a word picture of how terrible such people are.
Political parties and leaders have to be very careful to moderate their language so that they don't increase levels of fear and anxiety within the community. And certainly so that they don't do it in such a way as to inflame things like racist tension.
So what kind of things are we being told?
They're evil because they as people do terrible things to other people. They want to kill all Americans and all Jews, this kind of stuff.
People who look like that, with black hair like me and olive skin, you know, they're the enemy. Straight
away, the Muslims, people, are all bad. What about the Christians? You know, I could go on and on about them. You only got to go back to the Crusades.
Are you thinking about it? Are you looking at it?
I am.
Are you seeing it?
I am.
Well, that's what is happening in this world, mate.
Where does, for instance, the likes of George Bush, Tony Blair and John Howard, where do they get their mandate from? They get it from the people. The trick is to get the boss to like the idea. You use certain words, you use certain phrases, you say them in a way, you put them in a particular context and they become dazzling.
It suits government if people are fearful because it diverts attention away from other problems. It also gives government something to do to respond, and if you have a fear and then a government response to that, and then you get approval from the people for that response, that can shore up a powerful position.
It's worked till now.
Yeah.
But as I've said before, their success is fragile.
Yes.
Because Australians are smart. And sooner or later, Australians are going to start questioning this continual playing on fear.
Lies generate fear, and the fear of something as big as a never-ending global war on terrorism will need a lot of lies to keep it fueled up. Integrity is the best medicine society has, and the people who stood up for peace or resigned their jobs or painted no war on the Opera House are the heroes of the day. We need more of them to keep the system healthy.
That's it.
crime and its human cost that has been virtually censored from our parliament and from our newspapers and our television and radio. I am fed up with being lectured by and threatened by little men whose experience of what is Hollywood and television. It is time for journalists who care about this to stand up and speak out.
I got very curious at the time of the march at how the media wasn't covering the peace side of the invasion story. The media industry is booming, but not because they're doing a good job at delivering the news, but because national economies and global marketeers have a multi-billion-dollar profit riding on each margin of truth told or not told, as the case may be. With money, media and military might all sharing the same bed, how can we know what the truth is? How can we possibly make an informed decision and exercise our democracy if we don't have access to all the facts?
It's sort of an old adage about journalism, this watchdog role and their responsibility to the public good and being part and parcel of a democratic institution and speaking on behalf of civilians and watching out for civil society and all those things. Journalism is all about presenting multiple perspectives, and the resolution should happen at the audience level. The news should not be delivering resolutions to us. They should be contesting and helping us negotiate.
What is remarkable is how much the bloodshed in Iraq has gone off our front pages because it was no longer convenient to Rupert Murdoch, for example.
The media in Australia is part of the web of government. When you see Kerry Packer getting a sort of state funeral in the Opera House, you know it's like this. So no, I don't think that we can trust or listen to the mass media. It's all entirely paid for by advertising by the same corporations that are in bed with the government and so on.
See you, Wendy. See you, Richard.
See you, thank you.
One thing that's interested me a few years ago was the fact that people said, these Iraqi or Palestinian mothers, they have no dignity because they show their dead children to TV cameras. And I once argued with someone and said, doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that tell you that people are screaming to the world, look at what you are doing to us? And you as a correspondent, you are entrusted with that person's grief, with that society's pain and misery to tell to the world. And if you choose to powder over that particular incident and to, go with the sensibilities and sensitivities of your folk back home so that you don't disturb them over Sunday roast or dinner, then you're just failing the kind of mission that you're supposed to be entrusted with.
There's a truth that needs to be told, and I think there's a great deal of self-censorship that exists today in the journalistic industry, and that is where integrity and the absence of integrity come into play. Truth is the eternal problem for any journalist operating in the field or trying to cover any story. So truth has become a difficult term to define and a difficult term to approach, but integrity is not. The people who cover Milai, the people who covered Abu Ghraib, that is journalistic integrity. The integrity is the desire to tell the story as witnessed.